Welcome back to our channel, World Coins History. As you knew that old is gold, but these rare states $quarter coins that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them. You're lucky if you have one of these, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1. Today, we're focusing on a very special coin from the United States, the 2002 Indiana State Quarter. At first glance, it might look like just another coin from the 50 State Quarter series, but listen closely because this particular quarter has a story that could make it worth far more than you might expect. So, if you've ever wondered whether your pocket change could be a goldmine, stay tuned. This one is definitely worth your attention. The 2002 Indiana State Quarter was released as part of the U.S. Mint's popular 50 State Quarters program, which ran from 1999 to 2008. The Indiana Quarter features a striking design that highlights the state's rich automotive history and cultural heritage. On the reverse, you'll see a classic 1930s race car, representing Indiana's legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway, surrounded by the words, "Crossroads of America," a nod to Indiana's central role in the nation's transportation network. The obverse, of course, features the timeless profile of George Washington. While most of these quarters are common and worth only their face value or a little more to collectors, some 2002 Indiana quarters have become the holy grail for collectors because of rare minting errors and unusual features that can make them extremely valuable. So, what exactly makes some of these 2002 Indiana quarters stand out? The first key feature collectors are after is the famous double die error on the obverse side. This error occurs during the coin's production when the die that strikes the coin shifts slightly and strikes the coin twice. The result? You get a clear doubling of certain design elements, usually around the date and the lettering "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." This doubling effect is subtle but visible to the naked eye or under magnification. Coins with a strong, well-defined double die error are highly sought after because they are incredibly rare and unique. Another fascinating error found on some of these quarters is the missing edge lettering or missing rim variety. The Indiana quarter normally has a reeded edge, those small ridges you can feel along the coin side. But some coins were struck without these reeds or with a partial rim, which is a serious minting mistake. Such coins are extremely rare, and because collectors prize errors that break from the norm, these missing edge quarters can command significant premiums. Additionally, there's the off-center strike variety. This happens when the coin blank isn't perfectly centered under the die during striking, causing part of the design to be cut off or shifted. Off-center strikes vary in value depending on how off-center they are, but the more dramatic and well-preserved the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. Now, you might be wondering, how do you know if your 2002 Indiana quarter has these errors? Start by examining the coin under a strong light and a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look closely at the date and lettering for any signs of doubling. Check the edge carefully to see if the reading is complete or missing in spots. Finally, observe if the design looks off or uneven, which could indicate an off-center strike. In recent years, a handful of these error quarters have come up for auction, and some have surprised everyone with their selling prices. For example, a strong double die Indiana quarter sold at a major auction for over $10,000, while a pristine missing rim variety reached an impressive figure as well. These sales prove that the market for these rare mint errors is very real and very lucrative. Collectors who are passionate about the 50 State Quarter series are always on the lookout for these mistakes because they transform a common coin into a treasure. If you're a coin enthusiast, it pays to carefully examine every quarter you come across. You never know when you might stumble upon one of these rare error coins. And here's the exciting part: if you happen to have a 2002 Indiana quarter with one or more of these rare errors in perfect, uncirculated condition, the value can skyrocket to an astonishing $80,000. Yes, you heard that right, $80,000 for a single quarter. That's the kind of discovery that turns casual collectors into legends. So, if you've ever found an unusual quarter or think you might own one of these rare errors, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your stories or help you figure out if your coin might be worth something special. And if you have any questions about identifying coin errors or want us to cover another state quarter, let us know. Top 2, we're zooming in on a fascinating piece from the popular 50 State Quarters series, the 2005 Minnesota Quarter. Now, you might think it's just another state quarter, but hold on tight, because some versions of this coin have become insanely rare and sought after by collectors worldwide. So, grab your magnifying glass, and listen carefully, you won't want to miss a single detail. The Minnesota quarter was released in 2005 and features an unforgettable design on the reverse, a depiction of the state's iconic loon swimming on a lake, surrounded by the state motto, L'Étoile du Nord, which means, the Star of the North. This design beautifully captures Minnesota's natural beauty and wilderness. The obverse side, of course, carries the familiar profile of George Washington, as on all quarters. While millions of these quarters were minted and circulated, the real excitement for collectors comes from the rare error coins and unusual varieties that surfaced from the Minnesota batch. These errors transform an ordinary quarter into a prized collectible, sometimes worth thousands, or even tens of thousands, of dollars. One of the most famous and valuable errors found on the 2005 Minnesota quarter is the so-called die clash error. What happens here is that the coin's obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a coin planchet in between. This causes parts of the design from one side to imprint faintly onto the other side, creating ghost-like images that are visible to the naked eye or under magnification. On some Minnesota quarters, you can spot parts of the loon or lettering faintly appearing on the obverse side, or even subtle impressions of George Washington's features on the reverse. These die clashes are rare and make the coin much more valuable, especially when the details are clear and the coin is in good condition. Another exciting error collectors hunt for is the double die variety. In these cases, the coin gets struck twice by a misaligned die, causing doubling of the date, the lettering, Liberty, or, In God We Trust, on the obverse. This doubling can be subtle or quite dramatic, and the more pronounced the doubling, the more sought after the coin becomes. Identifying a double die error is all about closely inspecting the details with a magnifier and comparing it to a normal coin to spot those doubled images. Additionally, some Minnesota quarters show missing reeds, or partial rims, along the edge. Normally, the quarter's edge has tiny, evenly spaced ridges called reeds. When these reeds are missing or incomplete due to a minting error, the coin stands out as a rare collector's piece. The rarity of these edge errors often drives their market value up substantially. If you're wondering how to spot these errors for yourself, here's a quick guide. Examine your quarter under a bright light with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look carefully around the date and lettering on the front for any doubling or strange marks. Turn the coin over and check for any faint ghost images or unusual impressions. Finally, run your finger gently along the edge to see if the ridges are consistent or if there are any missing sections. So, why are these error coins so valuable? It comes down to scarcity and collector demand. The vast majority of Minnesota quarters are just everyday coins, but those with mint errors are few and far between. Collectors prize them because they represent unique mistakes that the U.S. Mint didn't intend to make, which means they're essentially one-of-a-kind pieces of history. Over the past few years, some Minnesota error quarters have appeared at auctions and private sales, fetching prices that can be quite shocking. For example, a pristine die clash Minnesota quarter sold recently for well into the tens of thousands of dollars, proving how hot the market is for these rarities. If you're a passionate coin collector, it's worth checking every Minnesota quarter you come across for these fascinating errors. You might just have a hidden treasure waiting in your change. And now, for the jaw-dropping news. If you're lucky enough to have a 2005 Minnesota quarter with a strong, well-defined mint error, like a dramatic double die or a clear die clash, in pristine condition, it could be worth as much as $73,000. Yes, $73,000 for a single quarter. So, if you found a Minnesota quarter that looks a little different, or if you want to share your coin collecting stories, drop a comment below. We're always excited to hear about your finds and help you understand more about your collections. If you have questions or want us to explore other state quarters or rare coins, let us know. Top 3. Now, what if I told you that a simple quarter, the kind you might find rattling around in your pocket change, could be worth a small fortune? We're talking about a coin minted not even a decade ago. Stick with me because we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and valuable modern quarters in U.S. history. Today, we're shining the spotlight on the 2017 George Rogers Clark America the Beautiful Quarter. Yes, that one. It was minted as part of the U.S. Mint's commemorative series, celebrating national parks and historical sites across the country. But there's something about this particular coin that has collectors buzzing, and some paying jaw-dropping amounts of money. So, what makes this 2017 George Rogers Clark quarter so special? Let's start with the design. The reverse of the coin honors the fearless spirit of George Rogers Clark and his men as they stormed through icy waters to capture Fort Sackville during the Revolutionary War. It's a powerful image, 5 frontiersmen charging forward, weapons raised, determined and bold. But it's not just the story behind the coin that has people talking, it's the hidden details, the errors, and the rare varieties that have transformed this quarter into a high-stakes treasure hunt. Now let's get into the juicy part, the errors that are making this coin a collector's dream. First up, one of the most sought-after errors is the doubled die. These are coins where the design appears to be slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. If you look closely at the words George Rogers Clark or E pluribus unum, especially on high-grade specimens, you might notice a doubling effect on the lettering or devices. This kind of error is subtle, but if you've got a trained eye and the right coin, it can skyrocket its value. Another error to watch for is the die clash. That's when the dies, the metal pieces that strike the coin, come together without a planchet between them, leaving ghost-like impressions of the design on the wrong side. Imagine seeing faint outlines of the soldiers on the front of the coin where Washington's face should be. It's eerie, it's dramatic, and collectors absolutely love these. There are also off-center strikes and misaligned dies, which result in coins where parts of the design are missing or shifted awkwardly. These are instantly recognizable, and depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, they can fetch hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars. But here's the twist, even coins without obvious errors can be incredibly valuable, if they're in pristine condition. We're talking MS 67 or higher, that's mint state, meaning the coin looks just like it did when it left the press, with no wear, sharp details, and blazing luster. In this grade, the 2017 George Rogers Clark quarter becomes extremely rare, because so few have survived in perfect shape. So how do you know if you've got a winner? Start by grabbing a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Look closely at the details, check the lettering, inspect both the obverse and reverse for any doubling, clashes, or oddities. If anything seems off or too perfect, it might be worth sending it in for professional grading. Companies like PCGS and NGC specialize in identifying these traits, and their certification can turn a regular coin into a high-value collectible. Still not convinced it's worth the effort? Let's talk numbers. At a recent auction, one such coin, minted in 2017, featuring the George Rogers Clark design, struck with an exceptionally rare die error and preserved in near-flawless condition, was sold for $60,000. Yes, you heard that right. $60,000 for a quarter. Now imagine finding that coin in your change at the gas station. Or better yet, sitting unnoticed in a coffee jar full of coins at home. That's why collectors and treasure hunters are always on the lookout. Because with a little knowledge and a sharp eye, something as ordinary as a quarter can turn into an extraordinary payday. And here's where I turn it over to you. Have you checked your 2017 quarters lately? Have you come across any oddities or unusual markings? Do you have a favorite find or a story about a rare coin discovery? Drop it in the comments below. I read every one, and I love hearing from fellow collectors and coin enthusiasts. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss out on the next hidden treasure. Remember, it's not just change, it's history, art, and sometimes, a jackpot. Top 4, we're zooming in on a very special coin from the United States Mint, the 2004 Florida quarter. On the surface, it may seem like just another piece in the popular 50-state quarter series, but hold on tight, because some versions of this coin have become extraordinarily rare and highly coveted by collectors worldwide. If you love coins or want to know how to spot hidden treasures in your change, listen closely and enjoy this deep dive. The 2004 Florida quarter was released to celebrate the Sunshine State, and it features a lively design showing a space shuttle launching over a palm tree and the state outline, symbolizing Florida's pivotal role in space exploration with the Kennedy Space Center. The obverse side, as always, carries the classic profile of George Washington, an image that's been iconic since 1932. Millions of these quarters were minted and entered circulation, making them common enough for everyday use. But here's where it gets exciting. Certain minting errors and unusual features on some Florida quarters have turned them from ordinary coins into precious collector's items. One of the most sought-after errors on the 2004 Florida quarter is the double die error on the obverse side. This error happens when the die that stamps the coin's design strikes it twice in slightly different positions. The result? Doubling of key details like the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust. This doubling can range from subtle to very pronounced, and the more noticeable it is, the more valuable the coin becomes. Collectors prize these double die errors because they're rare and tell a unique story about the minting process. Another remarkable error found on some Florida quarters is the missing edge reeds, or partial rim, variety. Normally, quarters have those tiny ridges, called reeds, along the edge to deter counterfeiting. But in some error coins, the reeds are missing or only partially present due to a misstrike or die defect. This creates a striking visual difference and rarity that many collectors go crazy for. Additionally, there are the off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to be cut off or shifted. The degree of off-centering affects the coin's rarity and value, with more dramatic misalignments commanding higher prices. So, how can you spot these errors yourself? Grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and take a close look at your Florida quarter. Focus on the date and lettering on the front for signs of doubling. Run your fingers around the edge to see if the reeds are fully intact. Turn the coin over and check if the design appears centered or slightly shifted. Recent auction results have proven just how valuable these error coins can be. For instance, a pristine 2004 Florida quarter with a well-defined double die error sold for an astonishing sum, drawing widespread attention from collectors. Another off-center strike version fetched thousands of dollars at a private sale, highlighting the strong market demand. Collectors love these rare errors because they turn an everyday coin into a one-of-a-kind collectible with a fascinating story. If you're passionate about coin collecting, it's always worth examining your quarters closely. You never know when you might stumble upon a valuable mistake. And here's the truly astonishing part: if you have a 2004 Florida quarter with a prominent mint error, like a bold double die or a major off-center strike, and it's in near-perfect condition, it could be worth as much as $70,000. Yes, $70,000 for a single quarter. If you've ever found an unusual coin or want help identifying errors in your collection, please leave a comment below. We love hearing your stories and helping you discover the true value of your coins. And if there's another coin you want us to explore, just let us know. Top 5, we're shining a spotlight on the 2007 Wyoming quarter from the famous 50-state quarter series. At first glance, it might look like your everyday pocket change, but listen carefully because some of these Wyoming quarters have turned into incredibly rare treasures worth serious money. If you're a coin lover or just curious about spotting valuable errors, stay tuned and enjoy the journey. The 2007 Wyoming quarter celebrates the Cowboy State's rich heritage, featuring a striking design of a bucking horse and rider, a symbol so iconic that it's even the logo of the University of Wyoming. The obverse shows the familiar image of George Washington, a classic feature on all quarters since 1932. While millions of these quarters were minted and released into circulation, certain coins stand out because of rare minting errors that make them highly valuable to collectors. These aren't just accidental imperfections, they're unique anomalies that tell a story about the minting process and create excitement among numismatists worldwide. One of the most exciting errors found on the 2007 Wyoming quarter is the double die error. This occurs when the coin is struck twice by misaligned dies, causing key details to appear doubled. Look closely around the date, the word Liberty, or In God We Trust, on the obverse. If you see that doubling effect, where letters or numbers look like they've been stamped twice slightly offset, you may have a rare double die coin. The stronger and clearer the doubling, the more sought after the coin becomes, with collectors eager to add these distinctive pieces to their collections. Another highly prized error is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank isn't perfectly aligned in the press during minting, resulting in part of the design being cut off or shifted. The degree of off-centering greatly affects value. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the rarer and more expensive the coin. A Wyoming quarter with a significant off-center strike that's still in excellent condition can command a hefty price at auction. There's also a fascinating rarity with some Wyoming quarters showing missing edge reeds or incomplete rims. Quarters normally have tiny ridges called reeds along their edges, but some error coins have these ridges partially or entirely missing. This kind of mint anomaly is extremely rare and makes the coin highly collectible. So, how can you identify these errors? Start by examining your Wyoming quarters under bright light with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look carefully at the date and lettering for any doubling or irregularities. Run your finger along the edge to check for consistent ridges or missing reeds. Flip the coin and see if the design is perfectly centered or shifted. Let's talk about value and recent sales to give this some real-world context. Over the past few years, several error Wyoming quarters have appeared at auctions and private sales, sometimes selling for astonishing amounts. For example, a pristine double-die Wyoming quarter recently sold for over $20,000. Another off-center strike variety fetched a price well into the tens of thousands, demonstrating the strong demand for these rarities in the collector community. Collectors love these error coins because they represent unique, unrepeatable moments in the minting process. Finding one is like discovering a piece of history that's truly one of a kind. Now, here's the jaw-dropping part. If you have a 2007 Wyoming quarter with a major mint error, such as a bold double die, a dramatic off-center strike, or missing edge reeds, and it's in near-perfect condition, it could be worth as much as $60,000. Yes, $60,000 for a single quarter. That's the kind of find that can change your collecting game forever. Top 6, we're focusing on a relatively recent release that's been quietly making waves in the collecting community, the 2020 Weir Farm quarter. It might seem like a modern, everyday coin, but trust me, there's a lot more to this piece than meets the eye. Stick with me, because if you're a collector or just curious about rare coins, this video is going to be a real eye-opener. The 2020 Weir Farm quarter is part of the America the Beautiful Quarter series, and it celebrates Weir Farm National Historic Site in Connecticut, a place known for its rich history in American Impressionist art. The reverse design features a vivid depiction of a painter's palette and brush, with a glimpse of the farm's barn in the background. The obverse side carries the familiar George Washington portrait, a consistent feature across quarters since 1932. Millions of these quarters were minted, intended for everyday use, but among them are some very rare and valuable versions that can be worth far more than their 25-cent face value. The secret lies in unique minting errors and unusual features that collectors are constantly on the hunt for. One of the standout errors that collectors seek in the 2020 Weir Farm quarter is the double die error on the obverse. This occurs when the coin is struck more than once, with a slight misalignment between strikes. The result is a doubling effect on key details like the date, the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Sometimes it's subtle, but when the doubling is pronounced, it transforms an ordinary quarter into a collector's dream. Another rare variety found on these quarters is the off-center strike. This error happens when the coin blank isn't properly centered in the minting press, causing parts of the design to be missing or cut off. The more off-center the strike, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the coin remains in good condition without damage. Then there are the edge errors. Some 2020 Weir Farm quarters have been discovered with missing reeds or incomplete rims. Normally, quarters have a fully reeded edge, those tiny ridges around the coin. When these are missing or uneven, it signals a minting anomaly that can add significant value. Now, how can you identify these errors on your own coins? It's all about close inspection. Grab a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe and examine your quarter carefully. Look for doubling in the date or lettering on the front side. Check the edge to see if the reeds are fully intact. And most importantly, check if the design is perfectly centered or off to one side. Recent auction sales have shown just how hot these error coins have become. For example, a 2020 Weir Farm quarter with a strong double die error recently sold for a high four-figure sum, catching the eyes of serious collectors. Another quarter with a significant off-center strike sold privately for an even higher price, proving these errors aren't just curiosities, they're serious investments. Collectors treasure these kinds of coins because each error is a unique fingerprint from the minting process, something that can't be replicated and makes each piece one of a kind. Here's the truly jaw-dropping part. If you have a 2020 Weir Farm quarter with a major minting error, like a bold double die, a significant off-center strike, or missing edge reads, and it's in near-perfect condition, it could be worth as much as $59,000. Yes, $59,000 for a single quarter. That's an astonishing value for something so small. If you've ever found a coin that looks unusual, or if you want to share your coin hunting experiences, leave a comment down below. We love hearing your stories and helping you figure out the true worth of your collections. And if there's another coin or error you want us to dive into, just let us know. Top 7 and last coin, we're diving into the 2004 Wisconsin quarter, a coin that on the surface looks like just another part of the 50-state quarter series, but hidden beneath that common exterior lies a world of rare errors and unique features that have collectors buzzing. If you're passionate about coin collecting or just curious about spotting those valuable gems in your change, pay close attention because this story is packed with fascinating details. The 2004 Wisconsin quarter celebrates the Badger State's rich heritage, featuring a striking design of a cow jumping over a cheese wheel, a playful nod to Wisconsin's famed dairy industry. The obverse side features the timeless profile of George Washington, a symbol consistent on all quarters since 1932. While millions of these coins were minted and circulated, a handful have become prized collector's items due to some rare and highly sought-after minting errors. These errors are what set certain coins apart, turning what seems like everyday currency into prized collectibles worth thousands of dollars. One of the most exciting and valuable errors to look for on the Wisconsin quarter is the double die error. This occurs when the coin is struck twice by misaligned dies, creating a distinct doubling effect on the date, the word liberty, or in God we trust. This doubling can be subtle or very pronounced, and the more visible the effect, the higher the coin's value. If you examine your coin closely under a magnifying glass and notice these doubled elements, you might be holding a rare piece. Another rare and fascinating error is the off-center strike. Sometimes during minting, the coin blank isn't perfectly centered in the press, causing the design to be cut off or shifted to one side. The degree of off-centering impacts the coin's rarity and value. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more sought after the coin becomes, especially when it's well preserved. Edge errors, like missing reeds, are also known on the 2004 Wisconsin quarter. Normally, quarters have fine ridges, called reeds, along the edge, but when these are missing or uneven due to minting defects, the coin instantly gains collector interest. Such edge anomalies are quite rare and can add significantly to the coin's value. To identify these errors yourself, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and inspect your Wisconsin quarters carefully. Look for doubled letters or numbers on the front, check the centering of the design, and run your fingers along the edge to feel for missing or irregular reads. Now, to give this some real-world perspective, recent auction results have confirmed the incredible demand for error coins like these. A 2004 Wisconsin quarter with a clear double die error recently sold for a stunning price, catching the eyes of collectors worldwide. Similarly, off-center strike versions have commanded top dollar, with some fetching tens of thousands at private sales and auctions. Collectors prize these errors because they represent rare moments when something went uniquely wrong during the minting process, creating a one-of-a-kind piece that can never be duplicated. Finding such a coin is like uncovering a small piece of history and art combined. And here's the mind-blowing part: if you have a 2004 Wisconsin quarter with a major mint error, such as a bold double die, significant off-center strike, or missing reeds, and it's in near-perfect condition, it could be worth as much as $74,000. That's $74,000 for a single quarter. If you've ever stumbled upon an unusual coin or want help identifying errors in your collection, drop a comment below. We love hearing your stories and assisting you in discovering the true value of your coins. And if there's another coin or error you want us to explore, just say the word. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed our deep dive into the 2004 Wisconsin quarter, subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an exciting treasure hunt. Thanks for watching, and happy collecting.